Well, you've probably seen in the news that there is migration happening from blue states, blue cities, blue counties to red states, red cities, red counties. There is a mix up going on in the United States where people are moving based off of their values. And today I have a special guest on, Roger Simon, to help me discuss this. Roger, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, I'm pleased to be here as a guinea pig mover for you and an author about the subject.
So you're a writer and editor over at the Epic Times. You've probably seen some wild stories in your journalism day. Right now, with the political election coming up, the craziness of coming out of these tyrannical lockdowns, what are some of the bigger stories or concerns you have for the United States, just from a journalist's point of view?
Well, the biggest concern in the United States right now is the open border. I mean, I don't think there's anything ever been like that. I mean, in fact, there never has been anything like that. So, I mean, that has to be the biggest concern because if it keeps up and if Biden survives physically and gets reelected, yeah, who knows what this country is going to be like? I'm contemplating moving to Argentina. I originally, as I wrote in my book, moved from the Hollywood Hills to Nashville, and it's an improvement. But much more of this open border, and we're going to either that or sign up with SpaceX with Elon Musk and get off the planet.
I was thinking today, because I have some travel coming up, that TSA is patting down these like 80-year-old grandmas to make sure that they can get on an airplane, but we can let MS-13 gang members across the border. We give them a cell phone, a debit card, a time with a lawyer. Like this southern border crisis is so out of control. I don't think most people realize that there's basically a Utah Jazz stadium's worth of people coming across these towns every other day. It's an absolute insanity.
It's extraordinary. And yesterday, the news from New York City, where I grew up, in Brooklyn, there at James Madison High School. Did you see this one?
No.
Uh, Take a look at this. They evacuated James Madison High School, a big high school in Brooklyn, so that because of the inclement weather, the uh, the immigrants, the illegals, can all stay there. So they now all the high school kids have to be home and do their studies online, and online studying is very bad. I mean, everyone knows it doesn't really work, or works with really directed people, which are there are very few in that situation. I mean, it's crazy. They had film of this. You got to look at it. I mean, they're just walking into this high school with their belongings, and that's it. And all the kids can't go. I mean, we've heard about it with the hotels too. Pretty soon they'll be in the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
I hope you
Yeah.
book properly on your travels. I'm going to Des Moines in a few days to cover the Caucasus for Epic Times, and I have my reservation, but I'm afraid I'll be superseded by illegals.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I uh I've been covering that pretty extensively here on my show just because it is such a big deal. But can you imagine finally getting to America? You've been told this is the land of opportunity, and you get in and they're like, hey, we're gonna put you up in this $800 a night hotel in New York. We're gonna give you food vouchers. We're gonna give you a cell phone. You get better benefits than people who have lived here their whole life. Welcome to the country. Like, what a welcome.
It's a fantastic welcome, but it's very weird, I think, because I believe that shortly thereafter these things will go away because they can't keep. I mean, you know the math better than I. It just can't happen. So then these people going, oh, what happened? What's my job? What am I doing here? I mean, all these things. The whole thing is a bait and switch operation on one level. So it's very. I mean, I don't know who made it up. I have a very nasty theory I'm going to put out here. I've said it to some other people. Is that I think Mayorkas is a Cuban spy.
Really?
Yes, because in my past, I was on the left, so I got to know a lot of people. I've been to the Soviet Union, China, all the rest, and I've been to Cuba, and I've met Cuban spies, and they're very good, and they have been in our government before. You could look it up. They're in high places. I mean, what explains this man's behavior?
Yeah, he's the smartest dumb guy I've ever met. When he goes before Congress, he pretends he can't hear. I don't
Mm.
understand the question. I mean, this guy is running out the clock with every Republican congressman or woman asking him questions. Literally nothing gets done when he comes to Capitol Hill.
He's very good at it, isn't he?
He
So
really
think
is.
about my theory. Anyway,
Yeah.
it may be salacious, but stranger things have happened nowadays. God knows what's going on. I mean, it's not simple. I mean, I just got through. I'm almost done writing an article on the prostate situation of our Secretary of Defense, who was getting a prostatectomy while the Houthis were attacking American military. I mean, uh, you know, the one great line that Marx had. I hate Marx, but what was the famous history is something about the second time is farce. This is farce.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of the Secretary of Defense. I mean, anyway,
And the Pentagon covering up and lying. Meanwhile, Biden's on his like what 110th vacation, something
yeah,
crazy.
Speaking of books, and I won't be qualified to write this one, but the one I wrote, I am qualified. But it is there something from Biden's doctors, if they ever would talk about what they give him to straighten him up when he has to address the public. It'd be a very interesting,
Yes.
lengthy story.
Yes. No, I believe that because when he was campaigning, he could barely get a sentence out. I remember telling my wife, like, this is so sad. This guy has dementia. I've seen it before. I recognize that. And then when he debated Trump, it was like, boom, they had injected him with methamphetamine or something. He was
Yeah,
like on his game. Of course, he lied about his son Hunter a couple of
yeah.
times, but he did it really, really well and with a lot of energy.
Yep, there's something going on. There's probably a whole series of things that, it might be useful to know for our own lives, but I have no idea. I mean, it's probably there's probably an amazing amount of stories. I mean,
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
it's definitely black comedy. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Biden and Epic Times, I was on your guys' website and I noticed two kind of juxtaposed articles. One was saying that Biden's approval rating is basically in the 30%, and a third of the country doesn't believe he was legitimately elected president of the United States. I'm looking at this going, wait a minute, these numbers are so close. How could such a large amount of people believe he's not a legitimate president and his approval rating is just the worst among any modern day president?
It's extraordinary. That there used to be that famous Chinese curse, "May you live in interesting times." I think that we're living through it. I mean, I'm old enough to have been around during the Vietnam thing, and you know, I was a protester like all my buddies, and that was the college thing to do. But none of us really believed that the country was going down the drain. I mean, it was all like a big, teenage protest. But this is like bizarre. I mean, the people going through the streets of New York yelling from the desert, from the river to the sea, all over the place, not knowing what river, what sea they're talking about, and so forth. I mean, it's I don't know what's happened to the psyche. Part of the reason is the educational system is so horrendous that nobody is educated enough to figure out what's going on. But these are very strange times indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to talk with you about this trend of this American migration, right? Americans are becoming like refugees where they don't feel like they have a place. They don't know, this isn't the country of the past. And we're seeing a exodus from blue cities and traditionally blue states to red cities and red states. You did that yourself, leaving Los Angeles for Tennessee. Talk to us a little bit about the research that you've been doing on why people are migrating away.
Well, this is interesting, I think, because when I first I first moved in June of 2018. So I was sort of like an early adopter, but not that early because there are three phases of this. There's been a mass migration going on internally from before COVID, during COVID, and now we're in the post-COVID era, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. And when I did it, coming to Tennessee, there was a lot of things going around. Don't bring your California values with us, with you, right? Now they were wrong. And it created a little bit of a conflict. And here's what happened is it turned out that the people who are coming from California by my research, and it's generally true, and I talked to a lot of people, and it was true of me, were actually more libertarian constitutionalists, you could say, than the people in Tennessee. Because who would pick up and move? It's a 2,000-mile track with their families, jobs. You have to make new friends. You have to do a lot of things. I mean, okay, you're not going to pay a state tax. That's great, but some of that's eaten up in the move by itself. So it took a certain type of person, and I call the book American Refugees to harken back deliberately to the fact that this is a country of refugees, not illegal aliens, but refugees who came from Europe and so forth back in the days of Ellis Island. And those are the people who built this country. I mean, all ethnicities, Polish, Jews, Italians, you go, Irish, you go on and on. And all of our cities and countryside are built by refugees. And they're fantastic. That made this country, you can almost cry how great this country is. But now it's being ruined from within by these blue states, by this woke mentality, and people are getting up and leaving. And there's a good and bad to that. I mean, I allude to this in the book as well. The good is that those of us who do it end up with better lives, although there are troubles when we butt heads in various things in the new place, but that's natural. But the bad part is that we're deserting. As I was on with Victor Davis Hanson, an old friend, yesterday for a long time on his podcast, and we are talking about that because he stays in. He's a farmer. Most people don't know that; they just see him as a pundit, but he's a farmer too. He's got this big farm near Fresno, and he can't leave. He can't leave, and he said, "Well, guys like you, who are my allies, are leaving." But it's the contention of the guys like me, and I had a long discussion with him about this, is that, California is hopeless and it's not going to be reviving during our lifetimes. It's just not. And the best way for it to revive is to bottom. And that's unfortunately true.
Yeah.
And you're getting some of those, you're getting some refugees from California and Utah.
Oh, yeah. Utah's real estate has more than doubled because of all of the money flowing in from California. Unfortunately, it's priced many Utahns out of the real estate market because they can't afford $1 million house. Where people come from California, they go, "Oh my gosh, this is a mansion for $1 million." Like, there were builders. I told my wife that house 90 days ago was $500,000. Now it's 999,000, just under a million. So someone from California plunks down cash, and then the rest of us are screwed.
True enough. In fact, it's not unique to Utah. Obviously, it's been going on here too, and I'm sure it's going on in virtually all red states. The other thing, now this might be a little different because Salt Lake is a little bit different, but I deal primarily in the book with Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona. I don't deal with the Northwest states where there is a lot of immigration too, but I just, write what you know. And I know the region better because I live there. And all of that stuff is happening that you describe, property values going out and people being annoyed for good reason. But that's the way of the world, and it's just going to go on. And there's little we can do about that other than weather the storm and, be considerate of our neighbors. I mean, that's because there is a certain natural annoyance about that. On the other hand, uh, one of the big shocks is that the big cities in these red states are very blue. In fact, Nashville is much more blue than I had imagined because I moved here and my wife and I did, and our daughter did, primarily because it's known as a creative place. We were screenwriters in LA, so we're artsy types, and so we needed a little bit of that. Even though we're libertarian politically, we still like the arts a lot, and this is the world center of country music. And indeed, it is. I mean, the music scene in Nashville is spectacular. That's why they've got tons of tourists all the time. But the government of Nashville is not quite Los Angeles, but it's close. I and Memphis is worse. I mean, and this is true of and Atlanta. My God! Well, we just found out the other day about Fannie Willis and her paramour lawyer buddy there. I mean, what could be more corrupt than that, and more actually dirty blue, you have to call it.
Yeah.
So, so all of these states have a fight going on within the states. And like Nashville is really almost funny because I'm talking to you right now from a southern suburb, Green Hills. This is sort of purple here. If I go another 5 miles south of here, it's red, 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 red. If I go another 5 miles north, it's blue, blue, blue. I mean, you could almost do this, on a map that's so locked. You can't believe it. But Georgia, unfortunately, you've got trouble at the top. You've got, Scott Raffensperger, the AG, and Camp, the governor, are, they're what they are what was been described to me, and interesting, and I have this in the book. They are the old Southern Democrats wearing Republican clothes. The Southern Democrats were not exactly the most progressive wing of the Democratic Party, as well known. And they're all concerned more with business cronyism, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's why they sort of they didn't like Trump.
Yeah, I did a video this morning that went out at 5 a.m. California time, where I go over that, where Fannie Willis, this district attorney that built her career on getting Trump, she's suddenly dating this low-level attorney with very little experience, who's had two underreported meetings with the White House and White House legal counsel. He comes back from those almost with the blessing to go after Donald Trump. Then this guy gets hired by Fannie Willis, and now he's made over $600,000 doing litigation that he has no experience, all in the name of getting Donald Trump. Something doesn't smell right
And
about
then
this
then he
situation.
goes off with Fanny on paramour vacations. And the other thing that blew my mind last night when I learned it was that he sued for divorce one day after getting the job from
Oh,
her.
really?
Yep.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, how you can get away with stuff like that is just amazing. It's like out of a novel, but you wouldn't believe it in the novel.
Yeah, wow. Now, certainly he wasn't cheating on his wife, right? He was a good moral
Oh
human
no,
being.
never.
Um,
Not a
so,
chance.
yeah, so he has to get Trump, this immoral orange-faced loser.
You're right.
Meanwhile, back at home, he's not exactly being the paragon of morality.
'Twas ever thus.
Yeah.
I think you can assume that's true more often than it's not.
Yeah. During the lockdowns, Roger, my channel kind of got big because I was accurately discussing and educating people on stimulus checks, the PPP programs, unemployment. The lockdowns just really decimated the country. And later, I had another YouTuber going through analytics with me, and he said, "You realize the top 10 cities that watch you all have Democrat mayors, or they come from a governor that's a Democrat." And I was like, wow, wait a minute. Why are so many people from these blue states watching me on government assistance programs? It was really interesting to me. So in your research, are most people leaving these blue cities and states for red cities and states? Is it because of the government's going woke? Is it because of high taxes, crime? What is the main reason?
All of the above.
Oh,
I mean, they're
okay.
all at once. And because, they're totally related. I mean, woke governments tend to overtax because they're giving handouts to people, and that's how it becomes. I mean, look at the government of California. I mean, they've got so many illegal aliens. They're all getting free medical care. I understand now. I mean, can you imagine what the bill is for that? And so these things are all related. They're not different. I mean, the big surprise that I talk about in the book is that almost all of the refugees from, I would say, principally New York, California, and southern Chicago area. There's a big group from there. Are coming in part ideologically because they're seeking the America that they thought they had growing up. You know, so they a lot of them go to places like Franklin, Tennessee, which I describe as sort of like a combination of Norman Rockwell with sushi bars.
Oh.
Yeah,
My brother-in-law goes there, and he's like, "You've got to go to Franklin, Tennessee. It's like going back in time. The people are so kind, so helpful. Things are still affordable."
well, it's an upper middle class community a lot, and there are nice restaurants and all that stuff because that's what comes. And the people that's Williamson County, which was at one point, and I think maybe still is, per capita richest Republican county in the country.
Oh, wow.
And part of that's because a lot of the country stars live out there. Also, people like Marsha Blackburn and similar things. So it's about 10 minutes from where I am right now.
Yeah. You mentioned that there might be some of this feeling of people trying to rediscover what they thought America was by going back to these smaller towns. My wife and I were watching Yellowstone last night, and the governor is being propositioned to allow this big Wall Street investment firm to come in and put in a ski resort and an airport in this small town in Montana. And she says, we need progress, but they're all coming out here seeking what we have, but they're going to destroy it in an attempt to experience it because they're going to bring New York and LA and LAification of these small towns. Is there any worry with that?
Oh, yes, a lot of worry. But on the other hand, some of it's misplaced because it depends on. I think it was overdone on one level. On the corporate level, not. For example, Oracle is coming to Nashville shortly with a big installation. That is bound to be bringing a lot of Wall Streetism. On the other hand, the people who are smaller people and small business owners, individuals of all sorts who are coming and tend more to be almost uniformly, almost you could say libertarian, although libertarian as you describe yourself someone who is practical and votes Republican if they have to. It's not, nobody wants to vote. I don't see a libertarian party around here. No one talks about it. But I mean, when I say libertarian, I mean constitutionalist more, and you know, the very thing, dreaming of that America that we all thought we were growing up in, and indeed to some extent we were growing up in. Even I in New York City as a kid. I remember New York City being that kind of place in a weird way. It's hard to believe, but it was. I mean, I used to go with my buddies to Yankee Stadium every night games when I was 10, and when I come home, my parents would say, "Have a good time." It ain't happening now.
Yeah, yeah. So your book that's out, American Refugee, why did you write that, and what could we learn by reading it?
Well, I wrote it to tell that story that we've been talking about, and also as a sort of a consumer guide too, because when I was doing it, I, of course, communicated with a lot of my old friends in LA and New York and other places, and they keep saying, "Well, what's it like in Franklin?" Because there, for everybody who's moved, there are many people who are contemplating it still. I mean, in fact, I barely talked to anybody who wasn't contemplating it. What you realize, though, in that is that some people are never going to do it, even though they're contemplating it for life, and other people just get up and do it, and that's a human personality issue. But that interestingly reflects back on this country, because some Italians in 1920 got on the boat and came over here, and now that you get great Italian food in Brooklyn, but but uh, a lot of them stayed there, and which is probably good too, because who doesn't like to go to Italy? So it's an interesting procedure, and I call it American refugees because we really are refugees. I'm a refugee in my own country.
Yeah,
I never dreamed I would do it because I'm always a coastal guy most of all my life. So it in fact never even occurred to me until, the last few years when it became obvious that things had gone awry, and the best way to fix things was to go and saving the red states, because they're under attack of all ways by the left. You got, I call a lot of people who came in the cavalry, and I do that deliberately because essentially they are the cavalry riding in on SUVs, not their horses, but they're no John Wayne or John Ford movie, but it is the cavalry nevertheless.
yeah. After Donald Trump lost the election, one of the states that he was really counting on was Nevada, and I remember hearing a Republican strategist say, everyone from California that wants to save 12% on your taxes, move to Nevada. You'll get a 12% raise and you'll turn the state red. And then Republicans will have those 11 electoral votes, I think it was. What they're finding, I don't know if you've seen this or covered this, but what they found is a lot of the people that are moving from Chicago, New York, California down to Texas, they're saying, oh, come to Texas, but leave your voting behind. Many of them have. They've actually come and they've voted more conservative than even some of the people in Austin or other parts of Texas. And you were saying that is kind of similar in Tennessee as well.
Yes, in fact, it's similar in all. I mean, look what happened to Florida. Florida used to be a purple state. Now it's as red as can be. So, yes, that's what's happened. But of course, those same people have left the other states and turning them more blue.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is true as well.
That's why. So we're headed for something, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
But I think that my optimistic view, and my book is optimistic deliberately. I mean, Victor was saying to me, "Is how do you stay so optimistic?" As part of that's my personality. But the other thing, but my optimistic view is that these other places are doing something, and you, with your economic knowledge, know this as well as I do, or maybe better, is that they're imploding by their own system.
yeah, yeah, they are. I remember. I'll mention this and then I'll get you out of here. But Remember when before the recall of Gavin Newsom, he was saying California's broke, we're over budget, we have no money, right? Then all this stimulus money floods in from Washington, D.C. He gets recalled. Suddenly, he has money for a third and fourth stimulus check. He's going to give free health care to immigrants. They reelect him, and now they're saying we're broke again. We got no money. So, but I'm an optimist at heart as well. I believe our best days are still ahead of us. And I try to keep that focus every single day. I think it's important too.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, first of all, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that it's very easy to be negative these days, very easy, as we know. And if you are, you're sort of contributing to it. So, I mean, I think that the human, we're given free will by God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of that free will is to say, stay optimistic
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
make the good things happen.
Yep. I say
You're
it.
obviously doing that with your show, and I'm trying to do it with my book
Yeah.
and other books that I write, movies that I write. I mean, that's what and the things I wrote for Epic Times.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is from John Wooden, the basketball coach for UCLA. He says, "Things turn out best for those who make the best of how things turn out." And let me tell you, during my 20 years of marriage, 3 children, I have been broke. I have had businesses fail. I have had hardship, and I have tried to smile through all of it, be optimistic through all of it, and I always will. And I think it's just you have to make that decision to be optimistic, even when all you see around you is darkness. Look for the light somehow, you know.
Yeah, I'll do an advertisement for myself out of that. The reason I think your viewers should buy American Refugees on Amazon, which is the best place to buy these things, and and read it, is for the optimistic view of what you can do if you want to move. I mean, and honest talk about how it's not always easy, but what is? It wouldn't be worth doing if it was always easy.
Yeah. We will go to the moon not because it is easy, but because it is hard. And look how
Exactly.
much technology and things that came out of that goal of doing something really, really hard as a nation. Roger, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to put a link to American Refugee down below so that people can check it out and go buy it if they want. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your optimistic spirit. And thank you for all of your articles on Epic Times, keeping us in the loop on what's really going on.
I hope I am. Anyway, I'll be doing it from Des Moines in just a very few days. We'll
Yes.
see what's going on there in the Caucasus.
Yes. Hey, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.